grinds my gears.
What the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell is wrong with you? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Victory Monday on the heels of a 21-13 victory by your Minnesota Vikings against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday Night Football last night. Was not without its lumps, I guess. Kind of an ugly game for a while, at least. Several things to talk about and unpack here tonight. So let us get started, shall we? Starting off with style points only counting gymnastics. Absolutely, Josh. Good evening, by the way. Speaking of those style points, we got the full Sam Darnold experience last night. Starting off in the first half, not particularly great, had two very bad interceptions. The first one, he talked about afterwards, saying that the ball came off wrong and he didn't get enough lift on it to go over the top of those two defenders to try to hit Jefferson behind him. And the second one was just a absolutely horrible throw that he had no business throwing. Both of them throws he shouldn't have made. But that is what Sam Darnold has had a tendency to do in the past. We've saw it in the, when he was with the Jets, we saw it when he was with Carolina. And then turning around in the second half and proceeding to play like the all-pro MVP type quarterback that he was the first 4 weeks of the season. Threw for 3 touchdown passes in the second half. Stat line, I mean, at the end of it, it was a pretty good game stat-wise. The two horrible interceptions notwithstanding. Darnold's line was 28 out of 34. So he only missed 6 passes, 2 of which were interceptions, but 26 out of 34 for 290 yards, an 8.5 average completion, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a QBR of 107.1. So if it wasn't for the interceptions, I mean, everybody would have been saying how great of a game that he had. But of course, you had those 2 very bad interceptions. And then on top of that, we had, we lost the turnover battle. Victory Monday, Doc. Yes, good evening. We went 2 straight games winning the turnover battle and losing to ruin the Kevin O'Connell streak there. But this time we lost the turnover battle and won the game. So I guess we'll take that. But this is the next thing I want to get on here. And as you guys probably saw on the, I made a joke about it on the header picture for the show tonight. What the hell is going on with the officiating crew when it comes to Sam Darnold in the NFL? 3 straight games now, there has been a blow to his head of some sort where the flag was either not called or picked up. Last night, it cost us 7 points because of that play where Garrett Bradbury got absolutely obliterated, ran over, and then Darnold got hit in the face, ended up fumbling the ball, and the Colts defense ran it back for a touchdown. Now, they threw a flag on that play last night, but for some freaking reason, they picked the flag up. And I'm going to read you something here. This came out today. Our friend Kevin Seifert from ESPN talked to the officiating crew last night with the pool or whatever it was. But here's the question he asked. He said, "Can you tell me what you saw originally to throw the flag on the Indianapolis fumble return for touchdown. And the official said, what I originally saw was a potential face mask on that high hit on the quarterback. Then Seifert follows up with, what went into deciding to pick it up? The official said, we determined the initial force was at the shoulder and it was incidental contact to the head and neck area. Seifert follows up again. Does it matter if the forearm or hands to the helmet that hits an area? Would a forearm to the head still be considered a blow to the head? And the official got snotty. Well, I did not see that. And then it was asked again, would replay assist allowed to help you with all that? No, it was not. So basically, you go back and you look at it again, there should have been no way that the officials did not see that. Terry McCauley, the rules analyst that Sunday Night Football has, former official, former high up in the head of officiating at one point in time, I believe. I mean, he said right on there that there was enough in that play for that to be called, roughing the passer, blow to the head. We've seen it called many other times. But for whatever reason, whenever it happens to Sam Darnold, he's not getting those calls or even having them taken away like it was last night. If that was Patrick Mahomes that had that same thing too, they would have drugged the defender to the 50-yard line and had a public execution. It is starting to piss me off. He's going to get a concussion one of these times or get hurt, but that's okay. We'll get a letter from the NFL, and that's going to make it all better. Kevin O'Connell even voiced his frustration a little bit today when asked about this. He said he has made his concerns known both before the game last night, talking about the non-face mask call from the Rams game the last time. And O'Connell said straight out that he has learned that his opinion, whether it was after the game last night or after the game 10 days ago, doesn't matter. So basically the NFL is telling him to shut up and do not criticize our incompetent officials. Now, I mentioned this. Sam's a ginger. They're always persecuted. Yeah, I don't know. Officials letting him get his ass kicked like they're out. Yeah. Well, and this comes to my point here, Doc, and I mentioned this, I think it was on Friday night show when Brunswick and I were talking about this. Seeing this stuff, especially the hit in the Detroit game when he was going down and he got hit in the head, I can maybe excuse that one as an incidental. I've seen it called for a lot less. But the face mask last weekend where the official was standing there staring right at him and they didn't see it or didn't see it. And then again last night where they originally threw the flag and then picked it up because they didn't see it. If it is gross incompetence by the officials or if there is something going on, more sinister and underhanded, like playing the point spreads and that kind of stuff. I don't know which is worse, honestly. I mean, if it's, the officials trying to fix games, that's probably a worse thing. I would like to say that it's just incompetence, and incompetence can be fixed. Corruption is a lot harder. But I think it was our buddy Chris Gates. I think it was one of his articles today I saw on the Twitter machine. They're talking about, are we really concerned about player safety or are we not concerned about player safety? Because if we are concerned about player safety, that blow to the head last night should have been a 15-yard penalty and a first down for the Minnesota Vikings. And had that been the case, the score would have been at minimum 21-6 last night. I mean, we still won the game. So, I mean, that's not the point. The point is the bullshit missed calls that have happened 3 weeks in a row now. And like I said, the NFL goes out there and talking about player safety stuff. Yet 10 days ago, Darnold almost got his head ripped off. And last night, he got a forearm right across the face, and you saw his helmet twist. The helmet twisted and the head didn't. I mean, that should tell you that something happened to the helmet. But whatever it is, these officials need to be held accountable. You can't just have a $7,000 fine to the player, like what happened with the Rams, and then the league sending you a nicely worded apology letter for missing the call. And it's going to be, oh, everything's okay because we said we were sorry. Thankfully, it didn't cost us a game this week. I mean, but, who's to say it didn't cost the Vikings a chance to, I mean, it did cost the Vikings a chance to at least try to drive down. It was an 8-point game. Try to drive down and get the tying score. They had time. It was 98-yard drive. So were the odds against it? Yes, it was. But you removed that possibility by allowing that to happen. But I don't want to get too much down this rabbit hole about bitching about the officiating, because it's just frustrating, and I'm going to be able to wallpaper the locker room with those letters. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, we've gotten a couple of them so far this year. I'm sure we'll get another one, tomorrow, Wednesday, whenever the heck it is that the league decides to send those things out. But let's move on from the negative and talk a little bit about some of the positive stuff we saw last night. As we had mentioned, the struggles a little bit in the first half. No points scored in the first half. But turning it around, some guys had really good nights. Josh Oliver had a very good night. Career night is, I think, pretty close to it as far as receptions. Had touchdown. You got a game ball from Kevin O'Connell in the locker room afterwards. Justin Jefferson ended up with 137 yards receiving. He has had a 25-yard reception in every game so far this year. And that 137 yards tied him for fourth place overall in Minnesota Vikings history on the career reception yards list, tying Adam Thielen. The only three left. Good evening, Stephen. Hey, Marie. Good evening. The three above Jefferson on that list are Chris Carter, Randy Moss, and Anthony Carter. Now, there is an outside chance that Jefferson could catch AC yet this year. Moss and Chris Carter, of course, are further up the list. It'll take him a little while to get there. I think he needs to have roughly 800 yards, give or take a little bit, to catch Anthony Carter. So it's possible. I mean, we still got, 9 games left. So Cam Akers, yep, he was another one. 6 carries, 46 yards, 7.7 average. Cam Akers apparently has surpassed Ty Chandler as running back 2. Susan, good evening. Been heard a little bit of stuff out there about the Vikings not being overly happy with some of the stuff Ty Chandler is, or the lack of his progression and development, I guess, is in certain areas, pass blocking being a key one. So it looks like Cam Akers is running back 2 now. The only time Chandler was on the field last night was on special teams. I saw him on coverage team at one point in time. Yeah, Doc, that's absolutely true. He's not only the best wide receiver in the league. I think he's the best non-quarterback in the league, and probably top 5 players altogether. You can make that argument. You can have that whenever, but I mean, yeah, Justin Jefferson is on his own level, and there's no question about that. Weird how players regress like that. Yeah, I agree on that 100%. He showed promise earlier in the season, a little bit last year, and then it's just kind of gone back. Marie is coming in. Thoughts on the Lions? Do you think that you can get them? Yeah, I do. We played terrible against them a couple of weeks ago, and we lost by 3 points. There were plenty of opportunities in that game that when we played Detroit that we very easily could have won that game, probably should have won that game. It was their some poor tackling. We let Jahmyr Gibbs run wild on us. Lions are beasts. 2 points, 31-29. Sorry, 2-point game. But the thing with the Lions are, Dan Campbell tends to make stupid mistakes at critical moments. He did it in the NFC Championship game last year. But it's very hard for a team to beat another team 3 times in 1 year. So, I mean, we're facing the Lions twice, and there's a very good chance if we make the playoffs, we're going to have to run into them again. So, I mean, Terry, good evening. If we got that loss out of the way to them, so yeah, we definitely can beat Detroit. Don't sleep on Houston beating Detroit on Sunday. I'm a little concerned on that side of things. I mean, Houston's wide receiver core is extremely depleted right now. Nico Collins is out. Stephon Diggs is out for the year. He had I think it was an ACL. So they've got Tank Dell and I think Van Jefferson and whoever all else. It's not much behind that. And they've struggled lately because they've dropped a couple of games here. They lost to Green Bay. They lost, I forget who else it was that they lost to recently, but Nico Collins will be back. Yeah, he's on short-term IR, so he's out for 4 games. I think he's got another game, at least one more game he's got to miss, but he's not going to be back for Detroit game on Sunday. So I'm a little concerned there about their ability to be able to keep up with Detroit, I guess. But anyway, back to the Vikings game last night. The defense did their job. The defense last night looked like the defense from weeks 1 through 4. The Vikings did not allow the Colts to run a single play in the red zone last night. Not one. The only touchdown they got was on that fumble return that should have never happened because of the blow to the head penalty that got picked up. Otherwise, it was 2 field goals. Now, speaking of field goals, the invincible Will Reichert last night showed that he is, in fact, human, missing 2 field goals. The one longer one pulled it right, and then the short one clanked it off the upright, also pulled it right. Now, finding out shortly after that first kick that apparently he had some tightness or something going on with his quad. You could see it when he was doing kickoffs and stuff later in the game. He couldn't even land on that leg. And, he was able to do kickoffs, but if he was going to have to do a field goal kick from any distance, I don't know that they would have trusted him to be able to do it last night. Bears watching this week how he comes by. I haven't heard anything today on how he, updates wise, but it would not surprise me at all for the Vikings to bring in a kicker this week, put him on the practice squad at least, and then have him as a game day call up. I think was it Bullock, the guy who used to kick for the Giants, I think is out there. John Parker Romo, the kid that we had in a training camp, he is out there, as a possibility. So there's a couple of options to, in case we need to bring somebody in for the next game. Now, a little more concerning also on that, long snapper Andrew DePaulo had to have hand surgery today. had a hand injury, likely going on short-term IR, meaning he'll be out for 4 games. So going to have to find a long snapper in very short order and get him in here and get him working with both Ryan Wright and Will Reichert, or whoever's going to be kicking this week. No, we're not bringing in Austin Cutting, I don't believe. Crazy how the pass rush didn't show up until the end of the game. It's not that they didn't show up. It's just they weren't getting home. You know, they were getting pressures. You know, Jonathan Gennard had himself a very good night. He was getting close a couple of times there. Now, yeah, that last drive, they absolutely just pinned their ears back and went out and got the job done. Gennard had 2 sacks on that drive. There was a third sack. I think it was, I forget who they credited that to. Let me look at that really quick if I got it up yet. The third sack, if anybody knows in the chat off the top of your head, let me know so I don't have to look it up here. Jihad Ward was credited with that other sack. Could have given half of it to Brenda. Thank you. Could have given half of that to Dallas Turner. Now, Dallas Turner probably played his best game as a pro last night. I think he played 26 snaps total. Was in on, had a couple of pressures, like I said, could have gotten a half a sack there on that one that was credited to Ward. Made quite a few plays. I mean, he's been, I think, made his case for more playing time last night. Yeah, Steven, I will hit that one here. Any word on Cashman coming back this game? Now, I know Kevin O'Connell was hopeful that they would have had him back for the Colts game last night, and then he didn't end up practicing during the week. Too early yet this week to really have any idea. We'll see what happens on Wednesday when the first injury report has to come out. If he's not practicing on Wednesday, I would say that, hey, Brian, good evening. I would say if he's not practicing on Wednesday, it would look to be concerned. Now, if he's at least limited on Wednesday, I think it bodes better for that. So we're just going to have to wait and kind of see on that. Yeah, Ant, it's kind of interesting that Brian Asamoah cannot get himself on the field. Even last night, Ivan Pace Jr. went down for a little bit at the end of the first half. And, Asamoah didn't come in. They actually moved Andrew Van Ginkel in to be playing more of the off-ball, inside linebacker during this time that Cashman's been out, instead of having him rush the passer, just because I guess they don't have a whole lot of faith that Asamoah can get it done. Camus Grige-Hill has been in there. He's played well, for the most part. He was the one that recovered the fumble on that opening drive last night. Seems to be, he makes splash plays, it seems like, whenever he's in there. But the sooner we can get Cashman back, the better off we're going to be, obviously. We talked about that. I was talking about this last night. I was live tweeting during the game, and somebody, asked a question about when the last time the Vikings had gotten a sack, and this was before that final drive. We didn't sack Stafford once against the Rams. We did get Goff 3 times against the Lions, so it had been like 2 games since they had gotten anything. Now, is that some of that potentially, I believe, is due to the fact that they've been holding Van Ginkel back as more of a, covering the short stuff across the middle than letting him do the pass rush? I mean, he's second on the team with 5 sacks. So obviously, if he's not rushing the passer, Pat Jones has kind of disappeared a little bit. He, started off the season really hot. beyond that, he's kind of cooled off. Dallas Turner, like we talked about already, is starting to get a little bit of play there. Osmo had 1 tackle last night. Okay, so he did get out there. Cam Robinson acquisition was a good one. Yeah, that's a good transition over there. I was going to talk about him anyway, so let's just talk about him right now. For a guy that came in here Wednesday, he got in here late Tuesday afternoon, but didn't practice until Wednesday. So, didn't really know the playbook. You're left tackle. You have to know some of your assignments on that stuff, but it's basically, block, especially on pass protection, block the guy that's coming at you to, rushing toward the quarterback. But Cam Robinson did a fine job last night. All things considered, I think he gave up 2 pressures, no sacks. His PFF ranking was pretty good. I'm happy with it. To get a guy as good as Cam Robinson is for almost nothing and have the Jaguars pay for most of his salary for the rest of the year, it's a no-lose proposition. I mean, looking at what we would have had with having to go with Quessenberry or moving Brandel back out to left tackle where, he struggled in the past because his weakness is stopping those speed rushers. This is the best case scenario that could have happened after Christian Darrisaw went down. Speaking of Darrisaw, he did have successful surgery today on both his ACL and his MCL, so now the recovery can begin. But yeah, I'm glad we got Cam Robinson in here, and he's going up against his old team this coming weekend. So, that there's going to be a little extra motivation there as well. Not much of LDR last night. He was in there a couple of plays I think, but it didn't really show up in the stat line. Plus, we might get a comp pick if Robinson doesn't resign here. Yeah, I think he would qualify as getting a comp pick. Now, it wouldn't be a 2025 comp pick. It'd be in 2026. But, probably would get a comp pick that would basically equal out the fourth, assuming he plays well enough here the rest of the season and plays the rest of the season, that conditional 5th round moves up to a 4th round. So I could easily see us getting a 4th round comp for Robinson, when he leaves and signs elsewhere after the season. Of course, Christian Darrisaw is the unquestioned starter at left tackle. So the odds of Robinson coming back after this year are not very high, but it behooves him to play well on a contending team. He's never been on a contending team. I think Jacksonville had that one good year. I don't know if he was on the team yet at that point in time, but playing well on a good team puts eyes on you and gives you that opportunity to get a starting job elsewhere in the league next year for, pretty decent money. Robinson can move to guard and could finally get rid of Ingram. I don't think he's going to want to. A left guy making left tackle money with the option to keep making left tackle money isn't going to want to move into guard. I would say that, we saw again last night, Ed Ingram is Ed Ingram, was not great by any stretch of imagination. He basically tripped Bradbury on that play where he got trucked and the hands to the blow to the head and the fumble and everything because Bradbury stepped on Ingram's foot. So can Robinson snap the ball? I don't know. Really like the use of the tight ends. Hey, good evening, Kevin. Yeah, it was. They made better use of the tight ends last night than I think we've seen most of the season, especially Oliver. Oliver sat on a big game last night. It was nice to see TJ Hockenson get back involved in it. Fairly nondescript evening. I think he had like 2 or 3 catches is all it was for 27 yards. But just seeing him back out on the field again was a major pickup, and it's only going to get better as we go along here, and he gets the rust knocked off and gets back into it. So yeah, Ingram and Bradbury are the saloon doors. Yeah, Oliver looked good. Yeah, I was very impressed with Oliver last night. Like I said, he got a game ball from Kevin O'Connell. Receiving wise, that's one of the better games that Oliver's had in his career last night, I think, just from an impact standpoint. But yeah, on the offensive line things, it would not surprise me one bit to see Dalton Reisner taking over at right guard here very shortly. Thought maybe he could have done so last night, but they gave Ingram one last shot at it. So we will see. I'll put it this way. It wouldn't surprise me one bit to see him starting against Jacksonville on Sunday. Now moving over to the center position, I am so done with Garrett Bradbury. I've been done with him for 3 years, but the problem right now, okay, we've got Juergens who's there, and we've got Dan Feeney who's there. Can either one of them do better job than Bradbury? I don't know. But Bradbury's fatal flaw always has been, always will be, when you get somebody physical coming up in your face, he can't get leverage. I don't know if he's just not getting down far enough, because we've seen it 100 times, if we've seen it twice, that a smaller guy can block these big nasty guys come up the middle. All you got to do is have the leverage on the guys, but he can't get it. If he's coming up too high or what, but if he's got to get down under that pad level. And if you hit him the right way, a small guy can knock a big guy on his ass if you do it right. But Bradbury at this point in time is what he is. He's never going to be any better than he is. I don't care if he gains 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever. Yeah, does he know the plays and can call stuff on the line? Yeah, he absolutely can, but he can't execute. And that's going to be a problem. And a lot of the problems that we run into is that the pocket collapses up the middle and the quarterback cannot step up in the pocket. But I think, yeah, next year, center has got to be a priority, whether it's free agency or draft. Of course, our draft, we don't have a lot of picks sitting there right now, but we do have plenty of money at this point that we can throw at some free agents. Defensive tackle, we still need to come up with something there. Probably a cornerback. Stephon Gilmore didn't have a great night last night. Wasn't as bad as it, a lot of people were making it seem. I mean, Flacco only threw for 179 yards last night, so it wasn't like they were getting burned repeatedly. But, Stephon Gilmore is starting to show his age a little bit, I think. He's the same age as Harrison Smith, which Harrison Smith, at the end of the game, during the game, I saw a couple people out on Twitter X, wanting to have the conversation about Harrison Smith being done. And then he comes out and makes 2 huge plays at the end of the game to help seal the deal. Byron Murphy had a good night last night. Yeah, Byron Murphy's our best cornerback right now. He's playing where he's supposed to be playing, in the slot. And, he's consistently been probably the top guy in that back end. Of the cornerbacks. I mean, you still got Metellus. Bynum had another pretty good night last night. Almost had an interception. Harrison Smith, again, is Harrison Smith. Jonathan Gennard, I mentioned earlier, had a very, very good night last night. Van Ginkel was pretty quiet. Again, he's playing more off-ball coverage than he was actually rushing the passer. But the defense as a whole, Jonathan Taylor, that first drive was gashing him pretty good. But to Brian Flores' credit and to the defense's credit, after that, Jonathan Taylor was pretty much a non-factor the rest of the game. So, whatever adjustments they did, it worked. and then the passing game couldn't get going either. The wide receivers, again, not doing really a whole lot of favors for Flacco either. They didn't do it for Anthony Richardson the week before. But Cam Akers looked spry last night. He did. Cam Akers looked really good running the ball last night. I was very happy with that. Like Darnold's was 2 picks are very concerning. They weren't even close. Yeah, we talked about that right after. I don't know if you were in yet, Stephen, when that started. The first one, Darnold said that he was trying to get it over the top of the defenders and he didn't throw it, get enough arc on it. Now, my thought on that one was he should have tucked it and ran. He could have gotten positive yardage and gotten up ahead, to keep the drive alive and not throw that stupid interception. The second one, it was a bad throw. He should have never thrown it that way. He did have Jordan Addison open again on the other side. And that's one thing that Darnold has got to figure out. That second time he choreographed it. He knew he wanted to throw it to Justin Jefferson. He looked it down, didn't even look off the other way, and that's why what happened. If he'd have looked over, he had Jordan Addison wide open. He'd completed the pass, gotten a first down at the very least, and we keep on moving the ball. But I mean, it is a thing of Sam Darnold. It is what he does. Sam Darnold can look fantastic like he did the second half last night, and then turn around and, there is 1 or 2 absolutely bonehead plays that Darnold is probably going to do every game. And he's going to cough the ball up once or twice. Not ideal, but it is what it is. We kind of knew that coming into what Darnold is. Has Kevin O'Connell got more out of Sam Darnold than most people expected? Absolutely he has. And this is a playoff team with Sam Darnold. It is. I made that assertion back after we signed Sam Darnold. But make no question about it. This is going to be J.J. McCarthy's team next year. Sam Darnold is here for the year. And then unless he decides he's content to stay in Minnesota and be a backup for McCarthy, he'll move on someplace else next year. Yeah, I hope it isn't a pick 6. That's the problem. It's, he gives up something like that. Well, the second one last night, we had just gotten the ball on the interception from Byron Murphy, and then we turned right around to give it back again. And then they end up getting a field goal out of it. Stuff like that. A lot of times in the past, this team has crumbled and fallen apart after that, or, after the 2 missed field goals by Reichert, the team would have fallen apart. Now, to this team's credit, they fought back and they kept it going. I mean, they led for most of the game again, once they got most of the second half anyway. Like about the D is most of the guys are doing different things each week or running some good schemes. Not the same. Yeah. That's a hallmark of the Flores defense. He's going to mix things up. He likes these guys that can play all over the field, like Van Ginkel, like Harrison Smith, like Josh Metellus. Those are the kind of guys he likes because being able to move guys around makes it more confusing on the opposing offenses on who's coming and who's not, or where they're coming from. You run a NASCAR package, you bring in 4 or 5 edge rushers and rush the quarterback. The blitz hasn't been getting home the last couple of weeks, and that's been part of the reason why we lost 2 games in a row. Now, last night they were putting pressure on Flacco, and then finally that last drive they pinned their ears back and took care of business. But I do want to say one thing, for all the grief that Kevin O'Connell gets a lot of times, and I've been part of that at points in time, about him not having the killer instinct. We look last night when the Vikings got that ball back, we're just saying, go out, run the clock out, maybe get down if you think that Reichert can kick a short field goal, do that, try to run that out. And to their credit, they got down there when the entire place and everybody, Collinsworth and Tirico and everybody out there were expecting the Vikings to run the ball. That's when they threw the pass for the touchdown that went in and daggered that play. Kevin O'Connell was being aggressive. Darnold threw a dart, and they went out and they closed the game out. And then the defense came back out, and that last drive just pinned their ears back and came out on fire. 3 sacks in one drive, plus a couple of very nice pass breakups by Harrison Smith. They stood up when it mattered the most, and they came out with a victory. And that's really all that matters. Were there warts in the game? Is there plenty of stuff they need to work on? Absolutely, there is. One other good thing that we've been harping on this a lot was the penalties and not killing yourself. The previous 2 or 3 games, they had like 7, 9 penalties in that. They had 2 last night. That is a massive improvement. It showed when you don't beat yourself by creating these, them stupid procedure penalties and things like that kill drives, you stand a very good chance to win a game. Now, Steven, very important game. 3 in a row on the road, 3 games back at home against possible playoff teams. That's absolutely. We have, and the next 3 games are games that this team should win. If we want to be considered a good team, a team that is a contender in the NFC, you need to go out and win these next 3 games. We have Jacksonville on the road, terrible team. At the point almost of Doug Peterson probably getting fired before the season's over. I was actually kind of surprised that he lasted longer than Dennis Allen did, who, if you hadn't heard, got fired in New Orleans today. But now, not to say that Jacksonville doesn't have good players. I mean, you've got Trevor Lawrence and you've got some other guys down there. ETN, good running back. I think he's been hurt. I don't know if he's back yet or not. I haven't looked at we'll see that and talk about that later on this week. But you should beat Jacksonville. Then you go to Tennessee, who is absolutely god awful, and you should beat Tennessee, and you should beat Tennessee very handily. And then we go to Soldier Field to play the Bears. Soldier Field is always a weird place to play. Now, we've kind of overcome that stigma the last 3 years. And Chicago could be at a point where they're firing their coach before too long here. Eberflus's seat is getting very warm in Chicago. They looked absolutely horrid against the Arizona Cardinals yesterday. I think it was 29-9 or something like that. I think the final score ended up being. Didn't look good at all. Their defense has not been performing recently as well as what it's typically at. And then the offense just can't get anything going. And Eberflus, I hope he sticks around. I do, but I can see them getting short on patience there very soon. Pressure on Trevor Lawrence is going to be a long day for him. Yeah, and we should be able to get pressure on him. And if you can start knocking Trevor Lawrence around, he will make mistakes. He'll throw picks. You'll get him on some sacks. The defense could be sitting on a very big game again this Sunday. Can we figure out the screenplay? Screenplay actually hasn't been as bad this year, at least it had in recent years. I mean, it's not great yet, but the addition of Aaron Jones in that screen game has worked, done wonders for making it at least a potential option. I mean, thankfully, we're not like last year. All we did was throw those 2-yard tight end screens that never went anywhere. We still have a few of those in our repertoire that rear their ugly head on occasion. But, I mean, by and large, the screen game, I think, has been better this year. Not great, but it's better. If we win our next 3, I bet they flex the Atlanta game to see Kirk versus his old team. They'd have to flex it to Sunday night. I mean, they could flex. Dallas plays one of the two primetime games, either Sunday night or Monday night. I don't remember which one. Because I saw somebody saying, with Dallas falling apart, Dak Prescott out for at least a month now, if not longer, with his injury yesterday. CeeDee Lamb has a shoulder injury, so they're falling apart at the seams there. But the NFL is not going to flex the Dallas Cowboys out of prime time. They're not. I don't care how bad Dallas is. They're not going to flex Dallas out of prime time. So I'm perfectly fine with the Vikings and Falcons still being in a 12 noon game on Sunday. I honestly don't care if we play primetime games or if we play afternoon games. There's nothing stigma-wise about playing the primetime games other than it's a nationally televised game, which I honestly don't care. I don't, because the Vikings aren't going to get the national exposure that these other teams are getting just because of who we are. We're the Vikings. They typically don't do that. You're not the Dallas Cowboys. You're not the Kansas City Chiefs. You're not the Green Bay Packers. You're not the New York Jets, who have so far been on, I think, 72 primetime games this year. So I'm not saying they're not going to get flexed, but I guess we'll find that out. They would have to do it, I think, by the or they could do it after the Chicago game, because we have the Cardinals first before we have the Falcons. So that's a month down the road. We'll worry about that when it comes to that point. But bigger bar tab, bigger hangover for work. Yeah, I don't like the night games, that partially for that reason. I know last night, that first half, I was sitting at home watching the game, and lowered the amount of inventory I had in my refrigerator, probably more than I needed to before going to work this morning. But it is what it is. You're going to sign Jerry Berthier to take out Sunshine. The guys we've got, I'm fully confident that Grenard, Van Ginkel, Turner, and those guys can take care of Sunshine Spicoli down there in Jacksonville this week. So how about them Packers? Yeah, I mean, honestly, it would have been better for the division had the Packers beaten Detroit, but yeah, it wasn't even close. And then I saw some, of course, typical Packer fan. I know we've got one in here watching tonight. No offense, Marie, current company excluded, but there was, somebody, the Packers should have won that game. We beat themselves. No, you played like absolute garbage, and Detroit curb stomped you. Jaguars played the Eagles very tough yesterday. We can't look past them. Agreed on that. Agreed. They came back, but I'm going to put that with a caveat that the Philadelphia Eagles are not a good team either. Nick Sirianni is a moron. I cannot stand that guy. He's got the second most punchable face in the NFL when it comes to coaches, of course, behind Sean Payton, in my opinion. The guy's a dick. I don't like him at all. And the Eagles fell apart down the stretch last year, and they're on the verge of doing it again. They were up 22-0, I think it was, on the Jaguars yesterday, and allowed Jacksonville to work their way back into the game. But no game is a gimme, because you go in there with that attitude and you're going to get your ass handed to you. So yeah, we cannot look past the Jaguars. They should have beat Green Bay 2 weeks ago. They got close, but way the Vikings have played since the second half of the Pack game shows me they could lose any game moving forward. Yeah, but then then they played like they did the second half of the Colts game last night, and then they can beat anybody at any point in time. this team is good enough to play with anybody in the league. I mean, we showed that against Detroit. We've played Detroit closer than pretty much anybody else has all season. NFC East is now Washington's division. It absolutely is. The Commanders are sitting at 7-2. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. I mean, we're seeing that. And Dan Quinn coming in there as head coach, he's got those guys playing hard. And that, yeah, they're no pushovers. Yes, they play in a shitty division right now, but Washington's going to be there. They're going to win the East. They're going to be in the playoffs, and they are going to cause trouble for teams in the playoffs. They are. The NFC West, which we thought was going to be a very strong division, they're all sitting there at 500 right now. I'm not really concerned with anybody out of the NFC West. NFC South, Atlanta's really the only team down there that's done anything. Kirk Cousins is playing well. They have the benefit of playing a bad division. I mean, you can only play who your opponents are. I still think the Vikings right now are probably the second best team in the conference. Detroit is number one. I mean, until proven otherwise, that's where they're at. It sickens me to say it because I hate Dan Campbell. They're playing dirty. You saw that yesterday in the Packers game. Brian Branch got ejected, and then on that same play, one of the defenders, the defensive lineman, I forget, I didn't see who exactly it was, but did the ankle roll takedown on Jordan Love when he was going down. He was wrenching Love's ankle, and that was part of what caused him to be limpy and not at 100% for the rest of the game. Atlanta game's going to be epic. Can't wait. Tampa Bay in the South. Yeah, Tampa Bay started off really well. Now they're having receiver problems. I know they're playing tonight. Game has started. I don't know if there's any score yet. They're playing the Chiefs tonight, but we'll see how that one turns out. But beyond that, again, just want to give kudos where kudos is due last night for the Vikings. The defense showed up to play. We've been harping on them for the last couple of weeks with good reason. Last night they came out and they took care of business. Like I said, did not allow a touchdown, did not allow the Colts to reach the red zone the entire game. That's a pretty tough feat to do, even no matter who your opponent is. And, the offense struggled the first half, but came alive the second half. We've been after Kevin O'Connell to make adjustments at halftime and come out because, the second half has been our Achilles heel the last 3 weeks. This week, they made the adjustments at halftime and came out and got the job done. Dominated time of possession. Yeah, I forget what the final numbers were, but it was significant. I think I still got the stats up. Give me a second here. Yeah, the Vikings won the time of possession battle last night, 36 minutes and 54 seconds to 23 minutes and 6 seconds. So we had it for almost 14 minutes longer than the Colts did. So, we ran the ball last night too. That was, that is a big part of it. You run the ball, you work the clock, and you make it work. And when you can do that, and then you can get play action involved into it, and you're not one dimensional. And for that, that's a big thing too, Brian. That's a great point. I didn't think about that, but when your defense has 14 more minutes of rest than the other team does, that's huge. You could tell late in that second half that the Colts defense was starting to get gassed. They were standing around hands on their hips and that kind of stuff because Vikings did go a little up tempo here and there, and just to kind of keep things, keep them on their toes a little bit. But 14 minutes is significant when you're on the field that much longer. We've seen it go the other way when our guys have gotten worked because they're just tired because the defense has been on the field all day long. But with that, we're going on just about an hour here. So unless anybody else has anything to discuss here quickly, I think we'll call it a night and go catch some Monday Night Football, see what's going on there. Programming note, it's this weekend's show. It's going to be a later show on Friday. Brunswick has to work, so it's probably going to be like a 9:30 or 10 o'clock show on Friday this week. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate you guys joining in the chat as always. Great discussion, great conversation. Love doing these live shows with you guys. You always bring the knowledge and the great questions and the great comments. And it's just a lot of fun. I love doing this. Couldn't do it if it wasn't for you guys. So big thank you there again. Shout out to the Filipino fan club across the pond as always. Shout out to my wife upstairs watching, who again said to make sure that I shouted her out. So hi, honey, I love you. I'll be upstairs in just a couple minutes. And with that, you guys have a great Monday night. And we shall see you Friday evening for the preview show as the Vikings are traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. So with that, again, good night, everybody. We'll catch you on Friday.